episode 99 of the podcast. What do we want from our customers? What do we want people to know? What do we want the dogs to know? What can we be teaching these dogs and these people to help these dogs be better for grooming, vet visits, and all other types of care? You're listening to the Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast. I'm Chrissy Newmeyer-Smith. I'm a certified professional groomer, a certified behavior consultant for canines, a certified professional dog trainer, and the owner of Happy Critters in Nashua, New Hampshire. And this, my friends and colleagues, is the podcast where grooming and training meet. What do we want from our customers? It's kind of a good question, isn't it? Like, what do we want from these dog owners? So from my point of view, I want customers to understand that they have taken on the responsibility for the health and safety of their dog. And it's not someone else's job. It is their responsibility. And when I talk about responsibilities, that's when owners are like, okay, interesting. They will pick up on that. They're kind of like, okay, I'm listening. Like, this is part of my responsibility. And when we word it that way, like, your responsibility for health and safety. So when you or I get a dog, that means our own dog, like I have two, right? It's our responsibility to teach that dog about the world that we are expecting them to live in. And we call that process dog training. What? I know, because dog training is more than just going to a group class and walking around on leash and doing sit stays. Dog training's purpose is to help owners have well-adjusted dogs who are a pleasure to live with, right? We want these dogs to be easy to care for, to be able to live in a neighborhood, live in the house. Think about what dog training is about helping these dogs understand their world. That's its purpose. Well-adjusted dogs. It's about safety. Dog training is about safety. A well-prepared and well-mannered dog is safer. Safer for you, safer for your family, safer for the neighborhood kids, right? They're easier to care for. They're safer for the mailman. And here it is, folks. I know I'm going to drop it right here. It seems so obvious. Safer for your groomer, safer for your vet, safer for your dog walker, safer for your pet sitter, safer for any doggy daycare, any dog professional that you might have. Dog professionals also want safe dogs. And that's part of an owner's responsibilities. So there are times where we need to kind of explain to an owner, you have to train your dog. It's not a surprise. It's not like it's a new idea. If you know that your dog requires regular grooming and hair trimming, it should be something that you're working on, not just bringing them to the groomer, but actually working on at home. Right? If you know that your dog will be going to the vet, it's something you should be working on. You should be working on vet stuff. You should be working on grooming stuff, right? This is not a new idea. It's part of the owner responsibilities. So dogs should not be coming to us unprepared. Dogs shouldn't be acting like feral beasts, never having had anyone stand them up and touch a paw. It's ridiculous. It makes no sense to me, but at some point, we really put up with a whole lot of that. And I think professionally what happened was, so I can't speak to a whole lot of time, but in the 80s when I got started, when I was a brusher bather and working at a boarding kennel in 1986, it was kind of this idea that you had to learn it as a puppy. This dog, gosh, they just got him too late. And maybe that's where this came up, where we just decided that we would take on any feral beast that came through our door, right? That we were just going to just push through it, and pat ourselves on the back, we did that dog a big favor today. Somebody's got to get him done. But I want you to change your mindset, because you know what? People and their pets have a very different relationship right now than they used to. And the pet world has changed a lot. People are willing to spend crazy amounts of money on their pet. They're also willing to put in the work if they need to. If we as an industry, we as the dog industries in general, all kind of say, no, we are not interested in having these knockdown, wrestle down, rodeo, nail trims, sedation, grooming. We are not interested in doing this. This is not normal day-to-day stuff. We are not interested in having dogs that are willing to hurt us. We are not interested in just maintaining haircuts on dogs that are never ever going to get trained, right? We need to draw a hard line. And I know vets are turning people away. Like, you know what? We don't want to see him again. I'm sorry. Groomers, you guys need to start telling people there's a solution set for this. There's dog training for this. All right, and I'll get into that in the next part because you guys are going, but nobody knows what to do. We'll get to that in the next part. But for now, yeah, you have a responsibility to train your dog. And if your groomer is having trouble, you're not doing homework because, oh, well, we have to do this to help our groomer. No, you have to do this so that your dog can be groomed by a groomer. You have to do this so that your dog can be groomed by a professional and to help your dog be good for it if you want professionals to groom your dog. Much like you're not brushing your dog because the groomer asked you to. You're brushing your dog because you're an owner who's taking on responsibility for a dog's care. And you should be brushing your dog, right? So we need to start thinking about dog training beyond just, well, we walk them around and we have them sit and we have them down. That's all important stuff. That's part of some self-control. That's part of learning to interact with a human and follow instructions. It's really important stuff. But training and behavior go beyond that. And so for the behavior consultant part of my business, so I'm a certified behavior consultant for canines through the Certification Council for Professional Dog Trainers. It's a different certification, and it's more of a problem-solving certification, right? It's more of a let's take a look at what's going on, figure out why it's happening, where it's happening, and how we can change it. And dog training is more about let's build a new behavior. They both go hand in hand. But dog training is all about teaching dogs to be good for the lives that they're going to be expected to live in. And dog training is important. And a lot of people get a dog and they are suddenly bombarded by how much dogs cost. It's no secret. Apparently it was to them. They're like, oh my God, and this round of shots and this round of this and the vet again. And I don't have, you know what, we're going to get him trained when he's older, or whatever. The dog training seems to be the thing that they're going to drop off on. But we need to make sure that people realize it's their responsibility to make sure that this dog isn't hurting anybody. That's pretty obvious. But not hurting anybody includes things like your veterinarian, your veterinary technicians, those animal nurses who are trying to help your dog, the groomer, the dog walker, we're people too. And we do not have to put up with dogs that have no training. You don't have to. Now, you might think, well, a lot of these dogs are really well trained. And yeah, it's true. I've seen a couple dogs that are awesome at a sport, but still need a lot of work with basic things like nail trims, right? And it's not that their owners aren't willing to do it. And I think sometimes they just hear, yeah, he was really bad for that. We need to just draw it out. Like, yeah, he had a lot of problems with those nail trims. Let's talk about what we can do for that. Especially with someone who's doing dog sports. Oh my God. Like, this is their freaking hobby, right? On the weekends, they pack up the car and bring their dogs someplace to do dog sports, right? I mean, I do fly ball. I'm sure a lot of you out there in the audience do like dog shows. A lot of people doing obedience, you should all be doing fly ball. But anyway, yeah, like they're doing dog sports. And so I want you to be thinking about, like, this is an owner who will take on a challenge if you give him a challenge. Like, hey, this is how we can fix this. Or let's talk about some options for how we can fix this, how we can help this dog learn to be good for it. But I know that a lot of really well-meaning owners have been told that, oh yeah, he's just so bad for this. And then what are they left with? They're left to kind of come up with their own way of figuring it out. Or they just kind of assume that, yeah, dogs hate having their nails done. Yep, that's just the way it is, right? And I'll tell you, one of my new customers, well, old customer, but they got a new dog. Just got this 7-month-old puppy from rescue, and I had the puppy on the table doing a little puppy visit. Even though the dog is 7 months old, could probably handle everything. I'm like, yeah, well, we're going to do a quick, easy visit. And I'm doing the nails, and she's like, I can't believe how good he was for nails. I'm like, why? I mean, because I know dogs hate having their nails done. I'm like, who told you that? Why do we assume that dogs hate having their nails done? Why do we assume that dogs hate going to the vet or dogs hate going to the groomer? It's a weird assumption, isn't it? So we need to help our owners understand that no, not all dogs have problems with being brushed. Not all dogs hate having their tail touched. Not all dogs hate going to the vet. And that we have solution sets, right? And that'll be in the next part. Because I know you guys are like, what kind of solutions do we have? Nobody has solutions out there, which frustrates me because every time I hear somebody saying, nobody's talking about behavior and grooming, I'm like, I have over 30 hours of podcast episodes. Yeah, we're talking about it. But so we want our owners to have the responsibility. And with that responsibility, we want to give them resources and help them with that responsibility. So it's not just about dropping it on their lap like that's your job. It's about that's your job, and let me tell you how we can get it done together, right? Let me tell you what's available to you. That's our service that we talk about is like, let me tell you what's available to you. Let me tell you what's going on. Let me give you all the information you need. If I need to refer you to a colleague, if I need to, make sure that I contact your vet and say, hey, this is the stuff that we're working on, and I know he's due for a vaccine. Is this something you guys are willing to work on also during his vaccine visit? It's about collaborating and helping owners teach their dogs the things that dogs need to know. If you're enjoying this podcast, please remember to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes and tell all of your friends. What do we want the owners to be teaching? I know, this is the part we've all been waiting for. What do we want them to teach their dogs? How do we want them to work on it? And some of the advice that I hear are things like, well, we want him to massage his feet, really get him used to having his feet touched. Or, you can use an electric toothbrush and run that near his head and get him used to that. Here is my problem with that, is that that's only a part of the component. We also need to tell them that their purpose is to teach the dog to like it. Because that backfires so often that owners go home and they're like, he needs discipline, and some of the words that we use, the verbiage, if you will, like he needs discipline. You need to tell him no once in a while. He's spoiled. If we tell owners that, sometimes they go home and they're like, I'm supposed to touch you with this thing and you were bad for the groomer and I'm so embarrassed. And, like, no, I'm not touching you with that. No, I'm going to touch you with this thing and I'm doing it. I'm doing the thing that they wanted me to do. Get this under your head. Let me touch you with this thing, right? And it backfires because they're literally going home and teaching him to hate it more. Think about that. Like our goal is calm, comfortable, and cooperative. So we should be expressing that to our owners too. I want him to be calm. I want him to be comfortable with it. And I want him to cooperate with me. So if we're doing it right, if you're at home and you're working with your dog, if you're doing it right, it's about as interesting as watching paint dry. He doesn't get to a point where he's telling you off and you have to tell him no. He doesn't get to a point where he's trying to get away. He doesn't get to a point where he's trying to bite the brush. You don't get to the point where you have to be angry, right? If we're doing it right, it's about as interesting as watching paint dry. Nothing's really happening. And that's perfect because what happens in that moment? In that moment for the dog, I'm being brushed or I'm being touched or someone's touching my feet and the sky didn't fall and the world didn't end and it didn't turn into a great big fight, right? But I want to think beyond some of the more common advice like touch his feet and maybe use an electric toothbrush, something that vibrates, makes a little bit of noise and get that near his head. Because we don't actually do foot massages. I mean, maybe a little bit while we're soaping up a dog, or you think about like, all right, I'm getting that soap in there, and I'm cleaning his toes. Aside from that, a foot massage doesn't relate to what we do. So we want dogs to be prepared for the job that's going to happen, not like a little tiny portion of it. So it's not that foot massaging is bad, just that it's such a small incremental step toward what we really need that it's not particularly helpful on its own. Some dogs, that's your first step. You're like, hey, look, I can touch it. Yeah, good, And then it turns into, okay, now I need to massage it a little bit. Oh, good. Now I need to separate out toes. Now I actually need to touch toes. Now I actually need to touch toes with an object. Now I need to flick toes a little bit with my fingernail and make that click sound. Click, click. I don't know if you can hear that. I don't know if my mic will pick that up. But that little click, click sound to get them used to something that's closer to what we actually need to do. But, and here's the big but, I start owners off with no grooming equipment. I want my owners in their living room, on the sofa, and just touching their dog. And I start them off thinking about, okay, well, I just need to be able to touch him all over and have my dog be comfortable with that. And, all right, also telling owners, you should be able to touch your dog anywhere. You should touch him in his private areas. You should touch him on his rectum. You should be able to lift his tail, check his bum, look in his eyes, look in his ears. You should be touching your dog everywhere. Everywhere. There is no place that is taboo, right? You should be touching your dog everywhere because we're going to touch your dog everywhere. And your dog should be used to it. And, these are house pets. You do not want to find out some Sunday afternoon when you're taking a nap in front of the TV and you roll over and touch your dog someplace that your dog doesn't tolerate that. Right? You're snuggling with your dog on the sofa, fall asleep, take a nap, roll over and touch your dog and have your dog go off like a bomb. Like, no, not safe. You should be touching your dog everywhere. So I start them off with just doing some touching and making the dog like it. There's no treats involved. It's just quiet time with us, right? Like, hey, let's just relax. The next step with them is that we start taking stuff off of the coffee table and touching them with random stuff, not grooming stuff. And my purpose for that is because I want them to think, okay, I'm supposed to touch him with things instead of I'm supposed to be brushing. Because once they start brushing, it's really hard to remember what the dog is doing. They're thinking about what their hand is doing, but not necessarily watching what the dog is doing. Whereas picking up a coaster off of the coffee table or a tissue box and just touching them with it and watching how the dog responds to it and help keep them comfortable is so much easier for an owner to do instead of the multitasking of and now be brushing, right? Once they start getting used to this, and it doesn't take very long, right? For many, many dogs, especially for puppies, like, yeah, you're going to spend a couple days touching them with random objects before you get touching them with a brush. It's okay. How many people wait months before they ever touch their dog with a brush? A couple of days is not a big problem in the big scheme of things. So I have them pick up okay, here's the lid for the jar candle. Here's a pen. Just pick up random things. Now, the other thing that does is that the owners are now picking up random objects. The dog is getting used to weird stuff, random objects. How neat is that? Right? Because I don't know about you guys, but my tools all have slightly different look, right? I don't have just one color, just one design, and I like tools. I have a lot of different tools, right? I'm going to be pulling off a lot of different stuff. And if the dog is used to what you touching with me now? Okay. I'm fine with that, right? So we can be pulling stuff off the coffee table and getting them used to that. First off, when we're just hanging out on the couch, right? Second step is having the dog standing on the floor. Get the dog to stand. You can still be sitting on the sofa, or you can sit on the floor with them, right? Have them stand. Start touching them all over. And when I tell owners all over, now that also tells them the kind of things they're going to need to do to be able to touch their dog's inner thigh with a coaster, right? How am I going to get these reading glasses in my dog's armpit. um, so I'll tell you, some owners have asked me, like, but I don't want him to think those things are toys. Like, yes, and that's exactly why I want you to be pulling stuff off your coffee table, because our grooming equipment aren't toys either. You are correct. I do not want him to be sniffing our stuff. Maybe a little casual sniff, like what is that thing? Okay. But no, we're not going to be smearing any of our items with peanut butter. We're not going to be making them excited to lick our brushes. That's not safe. I want them to be thinking, oh, this is just, well, we're going to be touched all over with this thing. Okay. All right. And the lid to the jar candle and the remote control. And these things aren't toys. They're not dog toys. So owners actually are learning more than they think they're learning by going through this process. So they're getting there, they're touching their dogs. Now, the dog's pretty comfortable with all that, so they stand their dog on the floor and work with them. Maybe they're sitting at the sofa, maybe they're sitting on the floor. This is stuff you can do while you watch TV. I usually tell people that, a commercial break is a great amount of time to just work on something so that you don't have to drill on something for half an hour. Spend 2 or 3 minutes, although a commercial break's a lot longer than that, but 2 or 3 minutes here and there. A song on the radio, 2 or 3 minutes. Something's in the microwave, although your dog might really catch on to microwave sounds, meaning dog time. So be thinking about that. When my last dog was a puppy, I used the TV commercials an awful lot, and she cued in on when TV commercials were coming on, and she'd like bounce over, like, what are we going to work on? But we can work on a lot of things in just a couple of minutes, leave the dog wanting more, and build this positive association with like, oh yeah, what, I can almost imagine dogs at a dog park, like, what, your dog, that time at night when you stand up and your owner touches you all over with stuff off the coffee table. You do that too, right? We want to make it so normal, so comfortable, right? About as interesting as watching grass grow. Calm, comfortable, and cooperative. Now, the next step from that is standing on a surface. Now, sometimes that's hard for an owner because they don't have a surface the dog can stand on. What I have done in the past, certainly you can use the couch if their dog's allowed on the couch. Couch is a good surface because you can just put a chair in front of it and just play grooming shop on the couch. In the past, I've done like a yoga mat on top of a chair. Like the yoga mat becomes kind of okay, when the mat is here, you're able to be up on here with me, right? I've used like the park bench as an opportunity to like, okay, let's get you up on a park bench and have you stand there while I work on stuff. An old coffee table with a yoga mat glued to it, if they really want to like build their own, which would also be helpful for them when they need to brush their dog out if they have a large dog. But we don't need to go too crazy, but just be thinking about like on top of a surface because it feels different. Now, some other criteria that we can build on, and now that we've got a dog who's comfortable being touched all over with lots of stuff, at this point they're probably getting brushed out because they're getting used to like, oh yeah, sure, whatever. I know how to stand. You can lift my leg up that way. Oh, you need my armpit? Sure. Oh, you need underneath my ear? Yeah, okay, I could do that, right? The next step is to be thinking in terms of the distraction levels. Usually we start this off in a fairly quiet room, right? Maybe you're watching TV and like there's the regular commotion of the household, but nothing too crazy. Like we haven't built up into making it more challenging, just whatever the dog's normal challenge level is. Right? But kind of quiet room. And then you build it up to a room with a little bit more sound, a little bit more chaos, right? Maybe this time you let the other dog in, which at our house always adds more chaos, right? Like, oh, hey, one dog's walking around and wants to be on the table, and this dog wants to be playing with the other dog, So be thinking about like adding a little bit more. That's kind of an incremental change because the distraction levels at an animal hospital or at a grooming shop are different than at home. So sometimes we only have one dog, but you know what? Get on YouTube and look up some like dog videos with dogs barking. Add some dog barking sounds. And especially if it's a video or something on your phone and you can just turn the volume down. Get them used to like some weird sounds going on. Why not? It's a challenge level that we can do at home that can help prepare them for what could happen in other areas of their life. Now, the last one, and this is the more challenging one, is to have somebody working with your dog at your house, right? One of the owners is there standing the dog, touching him with, by this point, probably combs and brushes and getting him used to it. And someone in the other room turns on the vacuum cleaner. Why the vacuum cleaner? Oh my God, my dog can't handle that. Yeah, you know what, owners? We need you to be able to help your dog through listening to a vacuum cleaner in the other room. I understand it's a loud noise, but that's the reality of a grooming shop. And we have these loud dryers and loud vacuums. And I know people worry about, does it damage their ears and, their sensitive ears. That's why I'm having you start it up in another room. Maybe put cotton in his ears if he's really, really worried about it. But there's no reason why you can't work on that at home. And if your dog is really worried about the vacuum cleaner, you can pair that with something fun. We talked a little bit about classical conditioning in a previous episode, but like vacuum turns on, good things happen for dogs, vacuum turns off, right? Like just get them used to a vacuum cleaner sound. And that could be its own seminar. That could be its own weekend seminar, for goodness sakes, not just a passing sentence or two in a segment. But I want you to think about getting them used to this background noise that's a little bit closer to what they're going to experience. Now imagine that dog who has been kind of used to they're going to turn on the vacuum in the other room, and I stand and I'm being touched all over with stuff and some of it's brushes and stuff. How do you think that dog is going to respond at the grooming shop and at the vet's office? Right? This is a dog who's prepared pretty well. Right? They're really learning a good amount about being handled all over, being touched with stuff. Maybe later in that process, the owner does use the electric toothbrush, and gets them used to oh yeah, this thing vibrates, makes funny sounds, and that dog is pretty well prepared. And there's no reason why the average Joe can't be doing that with the average dog. There's no reason at all. And we need to start putting it out there as a responsibility. Of course, it's a responsibility. If you want to bring your dog to baseball games to watch your kids play Little League, you prepare them for kids, right? You think about it oh, no, he's aggressive, but we're just going to bring him to the game anyway. And that's what we've been dealing with in our industries. It's oh, he's really aggressive, but we bring him to the groomer. They handle it there. No, we do not have to. We don't have to. We need to stop thinking that we have to. So everybody, have a great week and stay curious. If you'd like more information, you can find me at chrissy@happycritters.net, happycrittersdogtraining.com, or you can join the Facebook group, Creating Great Grooming Dogs Podcast, or the Facebook page, Creating Great Grooming Dogs. I really look forward to hearing from you.